Hello everyone. So I had a couple of requests to do a video on System Manager, and it's actually something I use quite a bit in a production environment. So today I'm going to show you how you can automate things using System Manager. Coming up. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is how you can refresh an intelligent cube automatically using System Manager. And then I'm going to show you how to schedule System Manager workflows because you may be thinking that System Manager or MicroStrategy has a built-in scheduler, and it doesn't. So I'm going to show you how you can do that. Then after that, I'm going to show you a little bit of extra things you can do with System Manager because there's really a lot you can do with System Manager. I can really make multiple videos on that, and maybe I will. So make sure you stick around to the end. Alright, so today I'm going to be showing you how to automate things with MicroStrategy System Manager. Now, the use case we're going to use is, let's suppose that you would like to automatically refresh your cubes, your intelligent cubes that is, every day after the database is loaded, right? So that's kind of the scenario here. Alright. Now, if you want to be able to refresh intelligent cubes using System Manager, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to tie them, create an event, and create schedules. So let's go ahead and do that. So first, we'll create our event. Now, events are really nothing special. They're really just triggers. There's not really many settings to them. It's really, you're just creating, it's kind of like just like a switch, if you will, right? It doesn't do anything unless it's tied into something else, right? So let's go ahead and create an event. We'll go. What you want to do is you want to come into your configuration managers here, events, right click. Oops, I created one by accident. We'll right click, new event, and we'll just name this refresh cube. Okay. Now, next thing we want to do is create a schedule. Okay. So we'll come right click, click new, schedule. We'll click next, and we'll call this again. We'll call this refresh cube, and we'll go and click next. Now, this schedule is going to be triggered by an event, okay? And it's the event we just created. We'll select no end date here, and it's the event we just created, refresh cube. So you're tying now a schedule to that event. Click next, and we'll click finish. Okay, so now we have our event, we have our schedule. Now let's tie this into a cube. So we'll come under administration, scheduling, schedule administrative tasks. Now, we'll select our project up at the top here. From the drop down here, we'll choose Update Intelligent Cubes. And we will check our Refresh Cube schedule. Then we'll click this little, under the Intelligent Cubes in this little box here. That's where I clicked. Little ellipsis there, and then we'll select our intelligent cube. So this is the one I created for the demo, System Manager demo. But you can select multiple cubes here, so you can refresh multiple cubes based on the same schedule. But we'll just select this one, and we'll click OK. And we'll click OK again. Okay, now we're all set, so we can jump into System Manager, and I'll show you how to trigger these automatically. All right, so here we are in System Manager. Now, System Manager is part of the MicroStrategy suite of tools. So you should be found under the MicroStrategy products folder. Okay, so let's get started. So in the upper left-hand corner, we'll click to create a new workflow. Okay, so here we are. So a couple things I want to point out first. In the upper left here, this is your toolbar. Okay, you're going to be using these tools quite a bit. So the green arrow, this is the success connector, right? So if one of the nodes returns success, that will connect you to the next step. This is for failure, right? So if a node returns a failure, you'll go to that step. And this is just continue no matter what. So let me show you how this is done. Okay. So now the scenario is we want to trigger a cube refresh if the database has been loaded. Now, the way we do it in my environment where I work is our ETL group, once the data is loaded, they will create a trigger file, we call it, right? It's just an empty file, really. And the presence of that file lets us know the data has been loaded successfully. Now there are other ways to do this, and I think better ways to do this. One is which is you can have these flags in a database table, and you can check for it there. Now for this demo, we're going to check for the presence of that file. So we're going to come over here and we're going to select this decision, this little purple question mark, okay? And we're going to click over on our workspace and we will add that. Now, if you don't click this little white arrow up here, and you keep clicking on the workflow, see it's going to keep adding them. So it can be a little annoying. So just make sure after you select something, you click this little white arrow so it doesn't do that. So let's go ahead and delete these. Now, you're going to want to also make sure this green flag is present. This is your entry marker. This is where the process will begin. Okay? So we're going to call this check load flag. Okay, now your properties for this, for all your nodes are going to be on the right hand side. So as you can see, there's a couple different things you can do with this. We're going to select file/directory check. We're going to then browse to our directory where I set up a little demo flags folder, and this file here, this is going to be our trigger file. We'll select that, and then we'll just leave this as exists, right? So if this file exists, that's what this node's going to check for. It's going to check for the existence of this file. Okay, now the next thing we're going to want to do is we are going to want to, if this file exists, we're going to want to delete this file. So now System Manager has many file operations down here. You can zip files, unzip files, rename files, move files. But the option we're going to want is we're going to want to delete this file, right? Because we're going to want to, once the database has been loaded and our ETL group puts that flag there for us, we're going to want to check that flag, but we're going to want to also delete that flag so we don't keep finding it every time this workflow runs, right? We want them to put the flag there, and we're going to clear the flag. So we'll use this delete files node here, and then we will obviously browse to that file. And there we have that. Now, we're going to choose if this check for this load flag returns successful, we're going to want to then delete that flag. So we're going to use the green arrow, drag it over, and connect those. Now, what if it doesn't find the file, right? This is just going to, the way it's set up right now, it's just going to run once and stop. So what I like to do is I like to put a little sleep timer in there, a little delay. So that's the clock down here at the bottom. We're going to add that to our workflow, and we'll rename this to sleep 5 seconds, and then we will just type a 5 in here, and we're going to use the red arrow from our check load flag, drag that over here, sleep 5 seconds, and then we're going to use the white arrow and drag from the clock back to our check load flag. So that means after 5 seconds, no matter what, it will come back to check for the flag again. Okay, so that's our basic operations there. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is, after we delete this file, we're going to want to execute our cube and refresh our cube. So we're going to come down here to this command manager folder here, expand that, and intelligence server. This is what we're going to want to use. So we're going to drag this over here, and if you drag it over here, remember what I said, if you don't select this white arrow, it'll keep creating them every time you click in the workspace. Well, if you drag it over, it will not do that. So just a couple things, a couple little tips. All right, so we're going to call this refresh cube. All right. And once we're going to use our green arrow, so once we delete that file successfully, we're going to execute our statement to refresh our cube. Now, let's look at the properties for this refresh cube node here. Okay, so up here, the connection information, this is where you're going to want to specify your intelligence server. So I'm going to specify mine in here. You would specify yours there, and then your logon for MicroStrategy for the iServer. So we're going to specify mine, administrator, no password. Now we're going to want to, you can also put, if you had a lot of statements, right, and you wanted to manage this inside files, so that let's say let's say you had a lot of statements, right, and they would change frequently, right? You wouldn't want to have to open this workflow and edit the code directly in this workflow, right? You might want to just be able to edit some kind of a flat file outside of this workflow. It's just to make sure nothing goes wrong. So you can actually just create this file called with the extension .scp. You can type all your commands in there, and then you can specify that here. But for this demo, we're just going to execute the script statements. We're just going to type them directly into this this workflow. So what you want to type here is trigger event. Then make sure you put the event name in quotes. And we named it refresh cube. Make sure you end it with a semicolon. And that's all you need for that. Now, at the bottom here is logging. I make sure all my workflows. Now let me be clear about something. I use System Manager for everything. All of my jobs, all of my reports in my environment are executed by System Manager. So I use this heavily. So things can go wrong. It's important that you log to log files. Basically, they can really come in handy. So we're going to specify a log file here. We'll just call this sysmanager demo log.txt. Okay, great. And then we'll click save, and we will save this to our demo folder. And we'll call this sysmanager. We'll call this 2. Save that. Now, let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. So it found our flag. It deleted our flag successfully. It's now refreshing our cube. So it's executing that statement. It'll take a few seconds here. And there we go. It has successfully refreshed our cube. Now, one thing you might be wondering is, okay, great. I've created my workflow. We've tested it. It works. I can run it manually. How do I automate this, right? Is there a built-in scheduler in System Manager? The answer is no, there isn't. But I'm going to show you how to automate this. So in Windows, what you're going to do is you're going to create a scheduled task. Now, if you're not using Windows and you're using Linux, I think there's, cron, I think would be the equivalent of this. But I work in a Windows environment, so I'm going to show you how to do this in Windows using a scheduled task. All right, so the first thing we're going to have to do is we are going to have to create a batch file. So let's go ahead and do that here. And it's really just like a text file. So we'll go create new text document, and we'll call this execute workflow, right? .bat. Enter. Yes. All right. And then we'll right click and we'll click edit. Now, this is where we're going to type our command to execute this workflow. So which one I want to first type is sys mgr.exe. That's the System Manager executable. W is the switch. And then we'll type, I believe it was d /demo / what was the name again? Here we go. And we'll just copy and paste this. This was our workflow. So we'll copy and paste this into here. There we go. And now you're going to have to enter a space, quotes, username. This is the logon to your intelligence server. So in my case, it's administrator. And then end quotes, space, quotes again, password. In my case, it's just blank. And that's it. So this is the whole command to execute this. So we'll click save. And then we'll close that. And now we'll go into our scheduled task, or task manager, task scheduler, sorry. We'll open that. And we will create a basic task. So we'll click create basic task. Okay, we'll give it a name. So we'll call it refresh cubes. Refresh cube. Click next. And this is how you can schedule the timing. So we'll say we want to run this daily, reoccur every day, and this will start every day at basically 10 a.m. That's fine. We'll say start a program, leave that option selected. And here's where we will browse to our batch file, which was on our demo. Here it is, execute workflow.bat, open. Okay, great. Now, I always make sure I select start in, and I make sure that matches the folder that the workflow is found in, that the batch file is found in. Now you can also add arguments, but in this case we don't need, that's not necessary here. Okay, and we're done. And we'll click finish. And that is it. Now you have successfully scheduled your System Manager workflow. All right, now there's a few other things I want to show you, a little bonus, I guess some bonus content here for System Manager, because there's really a lot you can do with it, and we really only scratched the surface with this demo. So, but let me show you a couple other things you can do with System Manager, because it really is a powerful tool, and I really do use it a lot and like it a lot. So let's go back into System Manager. I want to show you a couple things here. Now let's say you wanted to refresh multiple cubes, right? In parallel, let's say. Or you wanted to do something else in parallel, right? So what you can do down here is, let's delete this connection between our delete files and refresh cube. Okay, and let's come over here and select this double arrow down here. Okay, let's drag this over. Okay, now we're going to then connect our delete files with this split execution with the green arrow here. Okay, now what we'll do is we're going to draw an arrow from split execution to our refresh cube, and what we can do is we can add another task. So let's say we wanted to execute something every Sunday, right? Okay, so let's rename this Sunday. All right, we only want this to run on Sundays. This is our purple question mark, so we'll select this. We'll come over to our properties on the right. Weekdays check, and we'll check Sunday. Great. And then we will click this white arrow and drag a connection there. Okay. Now, let's add another intelligence server. I mean, you can even execute narrowcast jobs, and that's what I usually. I know a lot of people are using Distribution Manager nowadays, which I do use Distribution Manager, but the fact that you can't, distribution services, I should say, but the fact that you can't trigger an email with multiple attachments using distribution services is really a limitation that just doesn't make sense for me, because that means that we send a lot of reports to executives in our environment. Oh, look at that. I got a new subscriber as we create this. All right. Yeah, so like I was saying, I still do use narrowcast just because of the fact that you can schedule a job with multiple attachments, multiple reports, right? If every executive had to if we couldn't do that, every executive in my environment would be getting just tons of emails, right? If we can only do one report per email. So that's one of the limitations of distribution services. So I still use narrowcast server, so I actually use this task quite a bit. But for this demo, we'll just create another intelligence server task. Okay, drag that down here. We'll say, rename this refresh another cube. And we'll take a green arrow, and we'll say if it's Sunday, we want to execute that. And we'll again fill out our iServer information here. And we'll call this trigger event refresh cube. It really could be refresh another cube, but you get the idea. All right, and we'll click save. So now, after it checks for our trigger file up here initially, and then deletes that file, it will run these two paths simultaneously. So it's like it's a way to run, basically kind of like multi-threading, right? That's really what it is. Now, the way I use System Manager is there's also a task here to send an email. So you would need an SMTP server set up, but chances are your environment has one, especially if you're using like Outlook or something. Because so then what I would do is I would call this maybe like send alert, right? And then if I would click this red arrow, so if this failed, I would trigger this, right? So so a lot of times this is how my workflows will operate, right? If something fails, I will have the red arrow go to trigger an alert, right, or point to an email node, which would then alert the BI team that something has failed, and we need to look into it. So again, this is a really versatile tool. I could probably even spend a lot more time on this because you can interact with a database using this execute SQL task. I mean, it's really quite powerful, but hopefully this gives you a good overview. Thanks for watching. All right, so that'll do it. This is a new channel. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and thanks for watching.